right
Let me
about
know when we're
now.
live on
We're
YouTube.
on. That took a while.
Yeah, well, sometimes
And the chat,
perfection takes a little bit more than what we'd like,
uh,
but
the,
we don't complain about it.
I
Just get
feel
it done.
bad because people have been waiting on YouTube as well. But okay, I think we're good. Are we good?
Yep.
Okay. So we wanted to have this little chat because of the Inktober drama that's been going on, and since Inktober is going to start in a few days, we thought what better chance than to actually talk about it. I've got my friend Mr. T. Gaucher, Tyrus Gaucher here. I'll call you Tigo.
Dude, did you just forget my name? Are you
No, no,
kidding me
no,
right
no. You call yourself that on some of your Instagrams and stuff, right?
now? Or I call myself Tigo Sketch.
Tigo Sketch.
Yeah, you're a good friend, Will. I mean that sarcastically
If
and
you're
not
on
in a good
YouTube,
friend.
I've got links to his channels, all of his interweb channels and stuff like that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about the Inktober drama. We're gonna explain what it is. We're just gonna go through it. People are gonna join us late. They're gonna wonder what the heck we're talking about. But we're gonna have a good time doing it, right?
Allegedly.
You realize you're one of my only friends that I can talk about, that have a good conversation with.
First of all, I'm one of your only friends, and you can stop right there. You don't need to go any further than, hey, you're one of my only friends. Everybody knows that.
You're one of the only guys that will disagree. Everyone else is just too agreeable.
Facts.
So that's what it is, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to dive right into this. And if you don't know what Inktober is, it is a challenge that was conceived of about 9 years ago. I think this is the 9th year, by Mr. Jake Parker. And Jake Parker is, if you don't know who he is, he's a comic book artist, a children's book illustrator. He teaches with me at svslearn.com. I have links to that below. And just an overall great guy. He worked at Blue Sky, on Epic and Rio, and probably some other movies. He's got 300,000 people on his Instagram. He's a pretty big name, and he creates these. It's amazing. Like, he created this challenge called Inktober, and he's got 28,000 followers on Twitter on his Inktober channel. He's got 85,000 followers on Instagram, and the Inktober hashtag on Twitter has 3.5 million tweets, images people have tweeted in there for these challenges of the year, and 1.2 million just last year for 2016. So we're heading into October 2017, and it's a month-long challenge where you draw something in ink, and you draw it each day. That's the challenge, right? Now, have you ever done this, Tyrus?
So for the last 4 years, I try every year. Every year I try, but I have so much work and I'm so exhausted. I usually tap out probably the second week. The best I think I ever got to is 2 weeks. So, but I do love it. Like, I had my office set up. Every year I set my office up. I grab all these inspirational pieces and sketches that I have that I want to do more with. And I pile them up and I put them on the wall. I'm moving, so I pull all that stuff down. And I get ready for Inktober, right? I have my pens out. You know, I'm ready. I go buy new pens every year. I buy markers. But, you know.
I've never done it. I every year I've wanted to do it, and I've got other projects. I'm working on a book, or I'm working on videos, or I'm working on something. That's my excuse anyway. And we're going to get to the drama that happened on Twitter. The what do you call it? The Twitter hate, the trolls, it's good stuff. And actually, I put a link. If you're on YouTube, there's a link to the actual comment that Jake posted and what kind of the fallout from after that. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Do you want me to put that up now so people can see it?
Yeah, you can put that up there. I asked Jake, I think it was 2 years ago. I said, hey, because I've switched over to totally just about digital. I started out doing acrylics, and I've been an illustrator for 25 years, illustrating everything from editorial to advertising, and then finally landing in children's books, and that's primarily what I do now. And I said, can I do the challenge digitally? And his response to me was, sure, you could do it any way you want, but it was conceived to do it in ink. And I was like, oh yeah, Inktober, it makes sense, you know. And I'm like, well, what if I do it in ink, or what if I do it digitally? And he's like, nothing. I'm like, but you're not going to like it. And he's like, I didn't say that. I'm like, well, am I going to get hate online because I'm doing it digitally? And he's like, no, probably if you make it look like ink, no one will know. And I thought, I'm not going to do it because it was conceived to be done in ink. Now, did you do yours in ink?
No, so I ended up doing mine digitally. Like, actually, sometimes I start off in ink and then I go to the Cintiq, and it's a little bit easier for me to, I'm just used to drawing and working with a computer at this point. I don't spend a lot of time drawing with pencil and pen because I'm not on the train very much anymore. And usually when I do art or when I work, it's for a client or for a project. So I'm just always in that mode. And plus, I hop from project to project, right? I go from left to right and left to right. Whenever I get bored, I jump on something else. So I kind of create this digital working world. And I have, like I said, this entire art table is bought for Inktober. Let me show you. Right? And the wall usually has a ton of art on it, but I'm getting ready to move, so it doesn't now. But that's been the whole point of it.
And you're going to do it in ink?
Yeah, that's the plan, but it doesn't always work that way.
So you could throw in, I mean, I'm letting people join right now, and I'm watching the numbers, but we're going to get to what actually happened. But I mean, from your perspective, you could do it in ink or you could do it digitally. You weren't worried about that, right?
Hey, so no, not too much. It wasn't a big deal for me. I just figured like I do whatever I wanted to do and it'd be fine, you know?
Okay. All right. So what happened was so Jake gets asked this question too. Can I do it in ink? And I'm getting these messages popping up right now.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Okay. So he gets these questions too, like, can I do it digitally? And he gives them the same response. And so finally this year, because he gets asked so many times, and this is what I linked on YouTube, is the message that he put out there, basically to answer this to anybody. And so he put this out there, and he had no idea that it was going to cause one of those storms, you know. And I'm just going to read it. It says, the spirit of Inktober is self-improvement, and there's no better way to master your craft than to draw without a safety net. Working digitally usually means using Control-Z a bunch so you get your line just right, and that can enable someone to develop bad drawing habits. There's no feeling like making a permanent line and knowing you can't change it without consequence. I think that's how you improve and get better, because every ink line that's put down on your paper forces you to think, commit, and adapt. No one is going to stop you from doing Inktober on your iPad. Just know that you're missing out on the full experience of Inktober. And so he put that out there. And then to date right now, just under this thread, but there's a lot of other threads on Twitter, he had like close to 300 comments, and they would go back and they'd be like, because I went through them yesterday, I went through the whole thing in preparation for doing this. And it's like 2 or 3 or 4 hate comments to one person going, you don't understand, or aren't you being a little bit harsh, or you don't know Jake, and stuff like that. So we're going to read some of those tweets. We're not going to credit them, but we're going to go through this and kind of talk about, we're going to see where it goes, right? We're just going to.
Yeah, that's perfect. Let's do that. Let's go through the tweets whenever you want to, or you can ask me the questions first.
Okay,
but we're good. We're good. We got time.
We're going to see where it takes us. Okay. So he put that down, and I'm just going to read a couple of the tweets that came out of that. Maybe there's a way to say it's a traditional theme challenge and traditional mediums are encouraged without also saying digital art is too easy and makes you a bad artist. Okay. Did he say digital art is too easy and makes you a bad artist? Well, he said digital art is, in a sense, if you read between the lines, he said it was easier. But does he say it makes you a bad artist? No. Okay, here's another one. Unfortunately, some people cannot afford to replace physical materials every so often. But hey, anything to put down digital artists. I was reading through these, just laughing. I'm like, some of these are pretty creative. So I travel a lot during October. Digital art is just the way I can stay on target with the event, and really isn't the point. Isn't the point to improve? So there's some that are more moderated. I'm not reading like the real hateful ones, but a couple of things that I noted was there was a few straw man arguments, and that is based on what he said. Some people took it in a different direction, like that one. I can't afford digital. I can't afford traditional mediums. Okay, well, there's a lot of challenges out there, and there's a lot of things that people are challenged to do, and the challenge isn't invalid just because you personally have a situation where you can't afford something. So that's a straw man argument. Another one would be another person said that they're disabled, and that because they're disabled, they can't participate in that challenge. But that's another straw man argument. It's horrible that you're disabled, but what about a 5K run? What if you don't? What if your legs don't work? What about
right? If there's a 5K run and you can't run it, should we stop the 5K run because of the one person who can't run it?
Right.
No.
What about a sidewalk chalk competition? What if you physically can't get down on the ground for some reason and work on the ground? Like, it's painful for me. That's one of the reasons why I don't enter those things. I'm too old, but I mean, like, there's some people that I could do it, but there's some people that really couldn't, think about like challenges like American Idol, where you have to be able to sing, so the people that can't sing get booted out, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, Will, I think it's, we can handle this fairly simply, right? This is not a complicated thing. It's as simple as, if you can't do the challenge, then don't do the challenge. It's not like it's a competition to get into school and you're looking for fairness. It's not like people are being excluded. If you can't do the challenge, then just use a computer. Right. If you can do the challenge, then do the challenge. And at the end of the day, there's really no judge, and it really doesn't matter how you do it. The point is, just do it, right? It's an exercise. It's an opportunity for artists to all focus and say, okay, for 31 days and 30 days, I am going to create some artwork, and I'm going to post every day, and I'm going to post with the community. I'm going to find new people, new artists, people that I like, and I'm going to have a good time. That's it. But what we have are a bunch of social justice warriors who are looking for stuff to complain about, because this is not really anything serious enough for all of the tweets and hate that's going toward Jake or anybody else. If you can't do it, then don't do it. If you can, it's simple to me.
And what you're talking about is actually the bigger picture behind this, because like I went through and I just wrote down some of the adjectives or some of the words used to describe Jake. And let me read this list: snobbish, ignorant, gross, elitist, controlling, arrogant, dismissive, pretentious, bad, shaming, dense, classism, ableism. I had to look that one up.
Wait, which one? Ableism?
Yeah, ableism. Do you know what that means?
Tell me. That's a new one.
That means that you're like if you're a racist, then you treat people of a different race differently. If you're an ableist, you treat people that are disabled differently.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
So, and then the last one was potato, but I didn't get through all the tweets. There's probably
Please don't skip over stuff like potato.
Right.
Where are we in a hurry to go? Stop. Potato?
Yeah,
somebody called Jake a potato? That's good. Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly. Jake is a potato.
I mean, here's the thing too, is like, so, I mean, I work, and now we've moved into the same studio together. So he's sitting like 2 feet away from me, but I mean, they obviously, and he laughed about this. He didn't laugh at the people that were saying this, but he laughed that it created this big of a thing, because he didn't see it coming at all. And some people will say, well, then you're the problem. That's the first thing they're going to latch onto is, well, then you should have seen it coming. You shouldn't have said that. And there was a lot of comments on Twitter that said, but basically just saying you're ignorant, you're an elitist, you because of how far you've gone in your career, you feel like dissing on other people. And what I really wanted, another thing I really wanted to get into, because I want to go back to what you talked about, the social justice warrior type thing.
Mhm.
I want to go back to that. But before we do, I want to touch on the fact that both Jake and I both taught / teach at university. And as teachers, and we teach, we teach online for our own school, but as teachers, there really is something to the wax on, wax off. Everybody knows that reference from Karate Kid, right?
Right.
Where you're limiting, you limit your students on what they can do so that they really start to develop some muscle memory. In the case of drawing and painting, almost every teacher that I've run across, and I've traveled to other universities, I've lectured at other universities, um, and I compare notes, and I'm sure you do too. And one of the things that almost every teacher has in common is, and this is coming from somebody who's all digital now, who started all traditional, is that we want to teach our students traditional first, and then we want to move them into digital. And so for Jake and for myself, when we tell students it would be good for you to draw in a physical sketchbook. I have students all the time that want to draw on their tablet in class. They bring a laptop and they bring a tablet and they want to do their sketching on there. I'm like, it's not going to happen. You're going to get a sketchbook, and they're upset. And a lot of them, usually the ones that don't know me, they think I'm doing this because I don't understand digital or I hate digital or something like that. It's like, I love digital. That's all I do now. And in fact, today I actually did a little painting for a charity auction, and it was the first time I actually painted in about 6 months. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, what we do is we limit our students to traditional so that they don't have access. What he said in his comment, what undo and layers create is uh, a process in your brain where you don't have to deal with consequence. Okay. Now, some people are saying, well, a lot of people talked about whiteout. A lot of people on the comments said, well, what about erasers and whiteout and things like that? But what he's thinking is and you have to understand his logic, because they're also right. They're right in some ways. And I know him, and I actually didn't ask him about this, but I'll bet this would be the answer he would give me, is that when he creates an inked piece, he's looking at actually selling that inked piece as an original. So he doesn't want tons of whiteout and erasers and all kinds of stuff on there, because he wants the inked piece to look nice to be able to sell it as original. He has, one of his mottos is have 3 uses for every piece of art, like be able to sell a piece of art 3 different times or use it so that you can monetize it 3 different ways.
Right.
And so for him and for myself, I'd be thinking, well, sure, you could put white out and you could doctor it up and everything, and then you could scan it and you could put it online that way. But that's not what he's thinking. Like, if you force yourself, because like in an oil painting, you can't do that, right? Like you can make corrections in an oil painting, but there's a point and a process when we teach students to paint where you've screwed up your painting, you really need to scrape it off and start over again. Or if you're doing an acrylic painting or watercolor, you just have to start over. You can't resurrect that. It's already taken a nosedive and it can't come back. And that's how we learned how to walk, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like we learned how to walk by cracking our heads on the coffee table. And we said, whatever that was, it hurt. And I don't want to do that again. And so the next time we tried to walk, we tried to figure out what we did wrong. And that's really the spirit of where he was going. Now, you look like you had something you wanted to add in there.
Well, I mean, I agree. It's a discipline. It's like anything. So I took my kids to wrestling practice, right? And so in wrestling practice, my kids have to do this thing called sprawl, where they have to drop to their hands and kick their legs out. And it hurts your hands at first. It's a painful thing at first, but then you get used to it very quickly, but you have to do it in order to get used to it. And the problem is they don't want to do the hard part first, right? They just want to go and have fun and win, but they don't want to do the hard part. But it's a discipline. In order to be good later, you have to do this now. Well, it's the same thing with art. The exercise is designed to make better artists. The exercise is designed to get you out of your comfort zone. So if you like doing digital, or if you like using an eraser, it said, hey, try something different for a little bit of time. You don't have to do it forever, but that's the whole point. And so that's what we're running into, people who don't want to do the exercise. They kind of just want to do it the way they want to do it. And it's a problem.
It's in teaching, you call it scope and sequence. When you give someone a set of parameters, and then you help them, you show them the sequence at which you go through that, and you build from that. And so one of the things, and I know I'm going kind of deep into the idea of teaching here, but I do think it really relates to this conversation, because in order to understand his comment on Twitter, you have to understand the mindset of a teacher, which he has, which a lot of people do. And so let's see, I'm losing my train of thought in that right now. Well, just the same idea of like limiting you so that you end up focusing on those certain skills, and then you work your way into learning other skills and adding to that over time. Oh, and I was going to say, when you work digitally, the students that I see that go straight to digital or go to digital too soon, one of the things that's very common with them is they can't repeat their process. So they end up with 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 layers. And the next time they do a piece, they couldn't do a piece in that exact same style, because their process is being made up as they go along. And what you'll find common with digital painters that are very accomplished is they have much fewer layers. They rely on, and in fact, like look up, I'll link Jim Madsen, but you guys that are watching, you should look up Jim Madsen, Madsen, one of the best digital painters in my mind in the world. And he paints on one layer, right? So he paints digitally the same way that he would paint if he were painting in oils or acrylics. And it's not because he doesn't know how to use layer masks and all the digital tricks and things like that. It's that he forces himself to commit constantly through the process. And he's developed his process so much, he knows what he's doing. So a few other things that I want to bring up in here is, one thing that seemed to be missing from the conversation, a few people threw it in on the Twitter battle a little bit there, was, Jake is a digital hater. He's hating on digital. He does most of his work digitally. I mean, his children's books, his graphic novels, they're done digitally. He was working digitally today. I walked over there and saw him do a whole page for his graphic novel, and he's over there working on his Cintiq monitor. So he's not a hater of digital. So they got that part wrong too. So let's go into like how this. Let's talk more about like what you brought up, like how we get to this place where people are piling on and giving this kind of hate out. Hey, thanks, Oksana, for putting Jim's name up there.
Yeah, I dropped his website too. So
okay, thanks. How do we get to where? Because if you looked at the comments, there were a lot of accusations. I didn't copy them down, but there were a lot of accusations based on other accusations that were completely way off from the original tweet. And people calling him a lot of names and things that he just didn't deserve. How does that happen?
Well, I think it's more of this. It's an opportunity to get famous, to catch attention, but to catch attention for something other than your artwork. So the goal of Inktober is to do great artwork, get noticed, make new friends, possibly get more work. That's the whole point. But people are spending more time complaining about Inktober than actually doing work for Inktober. I'll also tell you this, most of the people who are complaining aren't doing very good work. They're putting their energy into arguing and complaining, and those things don't matter. I mean, it's just a waste of time.
Yeah,
It's the wrong intention.
it's interesting that the people that were defending him tend to be more accomplished. I looked at some of their channels or some of their links, and it seemed to be like a lot of the people that were coming to his rescue were people that, like you said, could draw better. And I don't know if that was a bias that I was looking at or looking for, but it was interesting.
Well, I'm not attacking people who want to be artists. I'm saying, if you think about it, people who are willing to spend that much time arguing about things as opposed to working on things, it defeats the purpose of it all. What's the argument about? Just get to work.
Right.
Do the work. If you don't want to be a part of Inktober, then don't be a part of Inktober. If you do,
right.
then do. It's not that complicated.
And I feel like too. I feel like you're right. I feel like the internet has given us this ability to get attention without at a very cheap price. So you say something provocative, and you can get likes, and you can get thumbs up, and you can get comments to your comments, or you can, or something. I mean, like, drama is addictive, right? Like it just is. Like when two people are going at it on Facebook, or it all of a sudden it becomes interesting, because we as humans, we do like to rubberneck it at car crashes, don't we? I mean, like,
yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, that's what this really is. Like, people who aren't even trying to do Inktober are arguing about Inktober.
right.
It's like, oh, here's a way for me to get into an argument or to get some attention.
Someone's down on the ground and people are kicking them.
Right.
Maybe I'll go over there and get a few licks in too.
Yeah, it's an easy fight. It appears to be, right?
Yeah. So
especially with Jason, he's fairly quiet. He's not argumentative. He's not going to get on and challenge everybody. And so I think people are just teeing off on him unjustifiably, because, man, it's really simple. If you don't want to do Inktober, don't do Inktober.
Well, and it's funny. It's funny too, because the thing that surprised him the most, I think, and me, because we were talking about it the day that this all started, and it was a couple weeks ago. And the thing that surprised us the most is he's like, do these people not? He asked me, do these people not understand that there's no Inktober Gestapo, there's no Inktober police, there's no awards being given out, there's no money prizes, there's nobody that's going to flag your digital Inktober submission, or your Inktober not even a submission, Inktober post, as inappropriate or as not relevant, or you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I get it. Like, which goes back to the point. It just looks like people are wasting time and energy on something that doesn't matter. Like, you're right. You can do it. Last year, the 2.5 weeks that I did work, I did everything digitally, right? I just cracked open a Cintiq, opened up Photoshop, and did it digitally. Didn't matter. I was actually trying different programs to ink it for whatever reason, just experimenting, because it doesn't matter. There's no award, there's no class, there's no degree, there's no certification. It's an art project. So at the end of the day, you can do it however you want. And that's just it. It's really simple. So why waste energy and time arguing about this when we could do other things? We could just go and do the work, or you don't have to participate. You could actually, there's a guy who started some other Inktober thing, but it's like with pencils. It's a Doodletober or something. Go join that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I'm an old guy. You're an old guy. How old are you, by the way?
You're an old guy. I'm not an old guy. What are you talking about? Whatever, dude.
What are you?
40 years old, Will.
You're 40. You're Jake's age. I think Jake's 41.
What are you? What are you, Will Terry?
I'm something.
Yeah, you're an old guy.
And that's my point. So, I'm in my 50s, my early 50s. People are probably of them young. I'm assuming a lot of these people are younger. And they're probably, some of them are probably right now thinking, well, what do these guys know? What do these guys know about it? And, they're old, and I grew up without the internet. You mostly grew up without the internet, right?
Yeah, for the most part, I did.
Right. It was coming in right when you were you were an adult, when it was.
When it got popular, when it really hit, I was in college.
Right.
And funny story. Let me interrupt you. Funny story.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was in college and my cousin's like, hey man, I sent you an email. And I said, what's an email? And he says, go to the computer lab and ask them. It's probably got your last name in it. So I go to my girlfriend at the time and I'm like, what's an email? She's like, oh, let's go to the lab. And so I had to get permission to come into the computer lab. And by the way, I took 3 years of computer before I went to college. So I go into the lab and I sit down. She logs in. She's like, oh, it's probably your last name. So we log in and I like peck the keyboard to death. And I press enter and send. I get up, I leave. I call my cousin and say, hey, I sent you an email back. I didn't use email for another 7 months.
All right, I got to tell you my email story.
It better be good.
1992, I left. That's when I left school. I didn't graduate. I left school, and I had finished my senior project and everything, and I started freelancing back in Washington, D.C. And I get this call from an art director at the LA Times, and she wants me to do an illustration for the concept of email. And I asked, what is email? Just like you did, right?
Right. Yeah.
What is email? And she's like, she didn't know that well. Like she had to read. She's like, let me read off this thing, right? She's like, an email is when one person types on their computer a letter or a message, and then they hit send, and then someone on a computer somewhere else in the world through the phone lines. Remember we used the phone lines back then?
That was amazing.
The dial-up modem.
You get to listen to that noise.
Yeah, so it's coming over the phone lines, and then your computer translates it back into a message that you can read on your screen. I'm like, they can do that now? You know?
You thought you were living in the future, right?
This was only
Where are the flying cars?
1992. So, so I drew a little picture of. I'm like, well, what should I draw for this? Like, I mean, what? And so we started talking about it. And we came up with, I'm going to draw a letter that's flying through the air over the world. So that was the illustration, and that was my first contact with email. And then you fast forward to today, and we have someone who issues this challenge, which is to better artists, to help artists, to make artists better, to better the world. And because this artist, you know, a lot of people in the Twitter were like, you don't own Inktober anymore. You might have come up with it. And they're right. It's out there. I mean, right. I mean, Jake started it. So some people were saying, you don't get to decide what Inktober is. It's out there for everybody. And they're absolutely right. And
wait a minute. Hold on. Are they right, Will? Like, think about that. If it's his creation, it's his, how does he not have ownership of it?
Well, technically, he is in the process of trademarking it right now. So he will. And he does own Inktober.com, and he does have the Twitter. But the challenge isn't curated by anybody. It's not because it's an internet challenge that happens every October. It's going to happen with or without him. He doesn't get to start it or stop it, or he doesn't nurture it or manicure it. He participates himself. Big shots like Mike Mignola participate. I mean, all the Scotty Young, all the big, I'm drawing a blank, but just all the some of the biggest artists in the world are now participating in Inktober. So,
yeah, I mean, it's a great exercise, really. Let's. I mean, the negativity is a negativity. You know, it is what it is. None of that is actually worth dealing with. I think. Let's make this clear. I think Inktober is a great opportunity for artists. It's a great opportunity to become better, to see other art projects, to work with other artists. It's one of those things that forces you to go from start to finish, which is always good. You know, it encourages you. It doesn't force you. And however you want to do it, even if you said, look, for Inktober, I'm going to draw with a pencil. That's fine. No one cares, really. You know, it's like, can you make great artwork? Because if you can make great artwork, people will come whether you're using ink, pencil, digital. If you make great artwork, people will like your work. And that's really what matters. So let's actually talk about Inktober. Like, Will, are you going to try to do it this year? And if so, like, what are some of the ideas you're going to throw down? What are some of the things you can do?
So I'm going to do, my plan is to do it a little bit. So at first I thought, well, if I can't do all 30 days, I'm not going to do anything. This year I might do a couple days is all I have time for.
But, yeah, I mean, that's fair.
My plate is full. So, and I've come to realize through this whole thing that it doesn't matter. Like you make it what you want. And it really did surprise us that so many people took it negatively. Now, what would you guess when you have something like this go negative? Are we blowing it out of proportion by even making this video? What would you guess the percentages of negativity to the number of people who when they hear about the controversy, they disagree with the negativity?
I mean, most people are going to think it's silly, especially artists, because we've been, fooling around with this for, I can't believe it's been that long, but I know I've been a part of it for like 4 to 5 years. So I would say the percentage of people who are upset about it is probably like 5-10%, less than that even. And I think most artists get what it is. It's an opportunity to draw, to get excited, to have some fun as an artist, and to connect with the art community across the world. That's why you dropped all those big names. Those are people who are professionals who have an opportunity to say, man, I'm going to have some fun with everybody else. Let's see where I compare as far as creativity with everybody else. And that's it. No one's making a big deal about it. It's just, let's have some fun. I would imagine that the group who are upset are very small, but making a lot of noise.
Yeah. I see in the comics legend says, by bringing it up, it just feeds the trolls. And I think he's right in a way. And that's one of the reasons why, Jake consulted a few of his friends and everybody said, just ignore it. It'll go away on its own volition.
So that's what I disagree with. I think that because what's happening is the negative people are able to build a groundswell and create a false narrative. They're talking about things that aren't happening, right? Jake hasn't excluded anyone. He didn't say if you have a physical element that stops you from drawing, you're just excluded. He never said that.
And he never said you can't do it digitally.
That's right. He never said you can't do it digitally. So I think that even if you only do it once, so that can be circulated, he should come out and say, hey, man, look, do whatever you want to do. And I know he did that. But I said after the trolls came, after all the negative, go and say, do whatever you want to do. Have fun with it. Enjoy yourself. I don't care. Turn in whatever you want. Best of luck. Now they can stop attaching things he didn't say and didn't do to his name. And I think that's important because if I'm new to Inktober and I happen to only run into the negativity, I'm going to be like, I don't want anything to do with this guy. And it could damage his brand. But if there's a follow-up that says, no, I never said these things, and that's great that you feel that way. Listen, if you can't draw with a pencil, pen, whatever, do whatever you want. Best of luck.
But so the flip side of that, I hear you. The flip side of that argument, and this is why you are wrong.
I'm never wrong, Will. You know that, and I know that.
The other side of the argument is that when he issues that statement, the people that got on him at first are like, "Oh, thank you. Now I get to nail you and try to pick apart something else." Because like some people were like, they tagged his endorsement with I think it was Autodesk, right, for Inktober. And just they picked on all sorts of little things like that. They showed where he had used whiteout with ink and different things from stuff he's posted before that wasn't supposed to be an original that was going to be copied. And I mean, just like they dig up all kinds of stuff. It's amazing how much time they have to go and hunt through his life and dig through his Instagram to find stuff. And they're like, he's a hypocrite, all these different little things. And so my argument is, if you don't feed the trolls starve.
You may be right, but my concern would be that the wrong message is being shared, right? And nobody wants that to happen. Because
I would probably feed the trolls because that's more my personality.
I think we have that in common, right?
He's more measured.
Talking about it now.
He's more measured, but and to be fair, some of the people that commented, I think. Okay, I'm gonna take myself back to my younger days. Let's face it, when you're younger, you're more easily swayed. Right. And if I were a young artist coming up with this internet let's face it, none of us really know how to use it. We're all addicted. Most of us are addicted, and we don't know we're addicted. And I could have been one of those people that just piled on, because piling on is like it's natural, right? Have you ever studied or listened to podcasts on how people are easily swayed to? I mean, like
mob mentality.
Yeah, there's a movie coming out where they're going to go through the I can't remember the shock experiment. You know which one I'm talking about, where they there was an experiment done back, and I believe it was in the 50s. I'm probably wrong, but it was quite a while ago where
Are you
they
talking
hooked
about
up.
MKULTRA?
Yeah,
Ah, you know about that?
yeah, and
This podcast is about to go crazy right now.
they're making a movie about that right now.
Really? When I tell
Yeah.
people about that, they think I'm crazy. They don't believe that
Well,
actually
explain
happened.
it. Explain it so people know.
Okay, so well, I don't want to go too deep in
Well,
terms of
just give a cursory explanation of it.
Sure. Okay. So the deal about MKUltra is these German scientists came over from Germany. They teamed up with these American scientists, and they performed experiments on American soldiers, American students, and it wrecked a lot of people's lives. So most people would say, "What do you mean German scientists?" The Germans, the Nazi scientists, teamed up with American scientists and teachers and doctors and all of that, and they did these experiments. And a lot of it was mind control, brainwashing, seeing how brainwashing worked and affected people. And this went on for quite some time. Now, it's actually a real thing. If you Google it, if you look it up, you'll find out about it. You'll see that the CIA was in control of it and that the people who were involved actually sued the government and won. So it's a real thing. People got a lot of money because their lives
Are we talking about the same thing? Because the thing I'm talking about is where they shocked these patients, and they got other people to shock them, but they weren't actually being shocked.
I would imagine that's a part of it.
It might have been a part of it. Yeah. So Jason's saying, I thought Will was about to talk about the electroshock volunteers. Yeah. So they got these volunteers. I don't know if it's part of that MKUltra or not, but they got these volunteers to.
We'll look it up. Go ahead.
Yeah. To come in, and it's like we do surveys now. You pay people to come in and do a survey, or to do a taste test or something like that. There's volunteers come in, and they told them, like, okay, your job is to shock these people if they get answers wrong. When we read them these questions, if they get an answer wrong, you got to give them a little voltage. And they kept amping that up to where they were killing these people. Like, and because the guy with the lab coat and the clipboard was saying, nope, you're doing the right thing. You got to do it, because there was an authority figure.
Oh, they made a movie about that, didn't they?
They're making a movie right now. I think it's releasing pretty soon.
I think it's called Experiments, the first one.
Something like that.
It's called Experiments. Yeah.
But it just shows that most of us are followers in some way. We're all followers in some ways, but I think that's what, I know we kind of went off on a crazy tangent, but I think that's what we're seeing here. And look, as a teacher, the teacher in me, I love giving advice. This is my channel. If you're new to this channel, it's an advice channel. My thing is, don't be a leader. Don't fall. Don't go where the crowd's going. Analyze, figure things out on your own. Go to the source, read that, and don't be afraid to be contrarian. Don't be afraid to swim against the current, because followers rarely ever, if you stay a follower, you won't be a trendsetter. And as an artist, especially as an artist, don't you have a responsibility to yourself to be original, to be creative, and to be not afraid? I mean, isn't that what art is to be bold and
well, you're right. You're 100% right. And I think that's the frustration with me. It's like all of these people spending all of this time complaining when all you have to do is don't draw. There's no point in trying to defame Jake or anybody else. Like, either you're going to draw, you don't draw.
Right.
It's not that complicated. It's fairly simple. And then you just move on. And the energy you spend complaining, you can actually spend in creating actual artwork, which is what we're all supposed to do. As artists, you know what? You don't get a job because you're a great protester as an artist. You don't get a job because you went and found all the eels in the world and you bought them the light on Twitter. No one's going to hire you because of that. Here's how you get a job. Make great artwork. Get better. Study. Go to SVS. Check out podcasts. Learn how to be a better artist. That's how you get the right attention. And I'm not saying that the people who had a problem aren't great artists. That's not my point. I'm saying for the people who are following them, especially young artists, it's a waste of time. It's churlish. It's silly. It's useless.
Yeah. The other thing, I can't help but think that our art is a product of who we are. And if your heart is filled with, wanting to stick it to somebody else for no reason, that's going to reflect in the kind of art that you're making, And
yeah, I agree with you.
It's like what you put into your soul is what comes out on the canvas, or what comes out digitally, or what comes out no matter what medium you're using.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, you have to ask yourself, what kind of art do I want to create? And I know, at the risk of sounding preachy, I, you know, as an educator, I sometimes I go a little bit further than the art and give my students advice, you know, on how to unplug, how to meditate, how to take time for yourself, how to recharge your batteries. And to me, this is part of that. When I saw that hate, I thought, are these really artists, or are they people who just, like, where's this coming from? Is this, I'm not getting any attention at all? I mean, because
Yeah.
it's really sad if you think
You
about it.
might be
Like,
right, Will. You might be right. And you brought up a point, and I'm going to go to a little bit of a different subject. We can come back. But we are, as artists, we do tend to create based on who we are and our environment and how we feel like. So since I've had kids, I've gone from drawing monsters and creatures to a bunch of little kids and doing children's books and
mhm,
illustrating things like that because that's what's relevant to me. If I'm focused on other artists, I can never really find my own voice or who it is I want to be as an artist. I'm always focused on them. I'm always complaining, trying to figure out what they're doing, and it ultimately becomes a waste of time. And so that's a really good point. And I like that you said that out loud because it reminds us to focus on us as an artist, focus on what it is you want to be, not spend time saying, oh, I don't like this guy and I don't like him because he does this and that. So I want to cause a rebellion because there's no fruit in that. There's no money in that. There's no success in that. There's no great art that comes from that. It's all a waste of time. It's just an energy waster.
right.
Yeah.
I can also say this, and this is not because Jake is my partner, my business partner, or friend or anything like that, but I've personally become a better artist since I've known him. I've only known Jake for, I mean, personally, I think the first time I met him was about 6 or 7 years ago, so it hasn't been that
Yeah.
long. And I'm a better drawer because of him. I feel like I'm more of a sensitive artist to the story, and not over illustrating, not letting the art dictate, but you know what I mean, like, really letting the story lead the art. There's a lot of things that I've learned from him, and I just want everybody to know. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this video. It's definitely not to stir up anything, but more to heal things, and just to say, um, as someone who watched this from the outside, it was hard to watch because he's such a nice person. He really does care about people as far as helping them. He, and I'll tell you this, he'll never tell you this, but he gets so much email, he can't answer it all. And sometimes people think, because they'll talk to me and they'll think, "What's up with Jake? How come he never answers his email?" And it's like, he's actually he's getting a taste of what it's like to be a celebrity, because, you know, I mean, I don't imagine most celebrities answering all their email, or if you could even
Yeah.
find
Right.
their email,
Right.
right?
Yeah. That'd be pretty
And
crazy.
he tries to make it a point to answer a few a day. And these are people that are asking, you know, "Jake, I love your work, blah blah blah. I've got this problem, I've got this question." And he's just got way too many, but he still tries to make time to do that, just to help people out. So he really does. I mean, when he put that out there, he that statement, I can guarantee you, it was not, "Let me stick it to digital artists," of which he is one. It was, and he's got 5 kids. He's constantly trying to teach his kids, as you have a bunch of kids, if I have a bunch of kids. And as that parent, as a teacher, you're always trying to help the people that you feel a responsibility to get better. He feels a responsibility to Inktober. He wants to help people and empower artists to become better. That's it. That was his motivation for that tweet. And if people understood that, I guarantee you they wouldn't have, because I know that 90% of the haters, maybe even 99% of the haters, are good people in real life. There's probably one person or two people in that whole thread that really have a bitter heart, that where they really want to hurt somebody. And that probably stems because they're hurting. They've had pain in their life.
I'll assume that you're right and give people the benefit of the doubt. But I just think that it's just it's a bunch of wasted energy. So let me ask you this, Will.
Yeah.
What subject are you picking for Inktober this year?
What am I going to do?
Yeah, yeah. What's going to be a subject matter? You know yet?
One of the illustrations I don't want to disclose, because I like things to be a surprise. I'll tell you. I'm gonna actually, one of the characters that I really love, um, that Jake has done, and this is kind of to honor him because he created Inktober, is his Skull Chaser character. So I'm going to turn his Skull Chaser character into a kid, like I do with my fan art stuff.
Oh yeah, that'd be
Um,
fun. Yeah, I get you.
and then I have a few other ideas, but I'm going to work them in if I can. I'm not going to commit to anything because right now I just have too many things. My like you never have time. It took us a while to schedule this because you're always busy. Um, and Inktober is one of those things that I hope to have more time for in the future because, like, here's another point about learning things and as an artist and stuff. It never ends. It's going to sound cliche. It your journey as an artist should never end. If it does end, you will see someone who's not creating art. And I've seen it many times before. I've seen people who their work is the same year after year and even regresses at some point.
Isn't
And I
that
look,
one of the scariest things, though, as an artist to go, man, I'm not growing. My work is getting worse.
well,
Um,
sometimes people, um, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of different reasons, and I'm sure that I don't understand a lot of them. Um, sometimes I feel like there are some people who like the idea of creating art, but they don't really like. Um, I feel like sometimes they haven't fallen in love with the pain that it takes to create art. You know, the bleeding that you have to do, the soul searching, and the. I mean, this sounds dramatic, but I mean it's true. And when those people, yeah, every year in my classes, I've had people crying over their art, and my message to them is, I love that I'm seeing your tears, not because I'm a not because I'm a sadist, but because I can tell that you're a true artist because you care. And then I see other people that are like, whatever, this is what I did, take it or leave it. I don't know. What do you think? Like, well, and I give them a critique that's pretty harsh, and they're like, okay, whatever. And then they don't care.
hey, Will, speaking of that, I just had this happen. So I'm back teaching again, right? So I'm teaching at two colleges this time in the
Uh
city
huh.
of Chicago. So, funny thing, I had a student come into class. So he's been late the last 3 weeks. So I just started, it's new school, wanted to teach there for a while. So he comes in late again, and I'd already covered what the assignment was, had gone over the techniques. So we're sculpting in 3D. So we're doing character art in 3D, and we're talking about Dynamesh. I do all this breakdown, and he comes in late. So I pull him to the side, and I'm like, "Hey man, what's going on? You're always late to class. What's happening?" He says, "Hey man, I come from Indiana." I go, "Man, I come from Wisconsin. So I'm on time. You should be on time, right?" And he's like, "Well, it is what it is." I said, "Okay, let's step outside. Let's talk a little bit more. I want to make sure I understand what's going on." So I'm talking to him and I said, "Well, the reason why I'm having this conversation with you is because I cover the techniques at the beginning of the class. Then I do a quick lecture and then I help each person, right? If you miss the first part, you pretty much miss the most important part of the class." So I do a breakdown. And he has this attitude like, "Well, it is what it is. So I'll catch up." And I said to him, which is what you were talking about, "Bro, if you don't care about the class, I don't care about the class for you, right? There are people in there who care, who want to learn, and that's what I'm going to spend my energy and time on. So that's okay." It's like I can't make people learn who don't want to learn, and I'm not gonna put that energy into you. He apologized. He got it after class, but yeah, it happens. And when you said that story, it reminded me of that. And I was talking to a friend, and he said, "You can always have people in your classes or people in our community who don't really care." He goes, "Don't focus on those people. Focus on the ones who do." He says, "If you have a student in your class who really cares," he goes, "grab them and bring them to the front of the class. Let them show off their work." And he said, "It'll change the entire atmosphere in the classroom."
Hmm.
And I forgot how to do that. That's very, very, very important because if you keep focusing on the kids who don't want to be there or the ones who don't have a good attitude, it'll set things off with everyone else. But
Right.
if you give a hand clap to the kid who's really pushing, who's really trying to find that heart, who's really trying to find that spectacular art, it sets something off in everybody else. And so that's similar to what you're just saying.
Yeah. And I to go along with that, I have seen Jake when kids or teenagers or college students show him, like, look at what I did, look at what I was able to accomplish here. He is very encouraging, and he's a true teacher. You're a teacher. I'm a teacher, and I don't know. I I just really want to send out the message. Some people are coming in late. I'm seeing some comments. They're like, "What's the verdict?" Um, I just really want to send the
Everybody's
message.
fired. That's the verdict. You're all
Yeah,
fired.
I just really want to send the message out there that being an artist means a lot more than the marks you put down on paper. It really is the person that you're building inside yourself. And so if you're focusing in on the wrong things, if you're focusing in on the drama, if you're focusing in on worrying about some person or some other people telling you that someone's trying to hold you back, and that no one can hold you back. Let's say Jake was a jerk, and his message was more, I what if he went further and he said, I don't care, I don't even want to look at your art if you don't do it in ink. What if he had said something provocative like that? It doesn't change anything for you. It won't stop you. It won't,
Right.
unless you
You're
let it.
right.
It,
Yeah.
it can't stop you, because you're going to do what you're going to do at the end of the day, and I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And this is a Inktober is a competition, or it's not even a competition. I'm sorry. It is it's a challenge. All it is a way for artists to kind of nod to each other, and if you see somebody, now that he's selling Inktober shirts. Well, I was at Comic-Con last week in Salt Lake, and I saw about 3 people wearing those shirts, and it's like you get that person automatically. Hey, they're one of the tribe, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that's what it should be online too. You post something on your Instagram, you're part of the tribe. You hashtag Inktober, you're part of the tribe. And Jake happened to be the person who started that tribe, but now, like a lot of people said, it's transcended him. It's gonna happen.
I don't. That part I disagree with. I think when
Oh,
somebody,
really? You don't think that Inktober will
I,
continue?
I think look, if it would it continue, of course, man. But I think you have to always give him credit, and he's the father of it, right? So if you
Oh,
want
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
ask,
But what I'm saying is, if he were gone tomorrow,
oh, of course,
yeah,
so we keep going, yeah, yeah.
that's
But
what I
I
mean.
do think he should have say in how it goes. I think that's only fair. If he comes up with this, he keeps the momentum, he gets people involved, he created this culture, this community. I think that he can have say and say, hey, if he wanted to. I'm not saying he did. He didn't. He did the exact opposite.
Okay, now it's my turn to disagree with you.
Okay, so let me finish the statement before you disagree with me and find out that you're wrong. All right.
Go ahead.
So here's what I'm saying about that. If he says I want this to be a challenge, it's his baby. He has a right to make his baby the way he wants to make his baby. If you want to make a bastardization of his baby, you can, but you don't have the right to come and tell him how his baby has to be. It's his baby. So if you did anything creatively, it's your creative outlet. Now, if someone can take it and make it better, they have the right to do that. They can take a bastardization of your creation and do more. But if he says, I actually like this idea. Think about this. What if he says, no, Inktober is only inking, and if you send anything in that isn't inked by pen, I will not accept it. He'd have the right to do that. Why wouldn't he have the right to do that? Now,
Okay, but
we have the right to not participate.
here's where you're wrong. You guys watching me and Tyrus have this thing where we like to where Tyrus is usually wrong. Let's face it.
And I'm 17-0 right now, ladies and gentlemen.
So Max agrees with you.
Of course he
Let me try to
does.
sway Max back to the other side. So with what you said, if he turned it into something negative, there'd be a lot of hate going his direction, and rightly so. Because at that point, if he actually did something like he said, like if you create something digitally, then I'm going to out you on social media, and everyone's going to blacklist you from Inktober or something crazy, something weird like that. I think that there would be a lot of backlash, but I think that, and this is why I say it doesn't matter, or he doesn't own it. I think Inktober would go on without him in a positive way. I think it would
Yeah,
turn
we're
positive.
not disagreeing about Inktober continuing. What I'm saying is, so you and I agree on that. I am saying Inktober would continue whether Jake wanted it to or not. But I'm
Right.
saying, as the creator of the idea, as the creator of the project, I think he has a right. Look at this guy. I disagree. Stephanie, stop trying to win points with Will. He's nobody important. Look, I think he has a right. It's his idea. How does he not have control over his idea? Now, we can take his idea and do whatever we want, but I think he has a right to whatever the stipulations are of his project. We don't have to agree with it. You can do your own thing, but how can we tell him he doesn't have a right to create a competition?
Well,
and say what the rules are in the competition.
Well, because I guess in my world, maybe we're both right, but in my world,
no, we're not both right. You're wrong. You're not getting away with that. You're wrong. You admit it. Go ahead.
Because it's on the internet, nobody really owns it. Even though he's trademarked the word, the competition, like I said, like there's okay. Let's face it. Here's why. Out of the 1.2 or so million, 1.2 million in submissions in 2016. Maybe a 500,000 of those people don't even know who Jake Parker is, and don't have any clue of any of the drama. Like there's people in the comments right now, like I didn't know there was any drama. And so they're going to do Inktober next year and the year after that, just because other people are hashtagging Inktober. So no,
we agree. No, okay. We agree with that. We both.
So that's why I say it doesn't. It'll go whether he has. I get what you're saying. You're saying.
Let me rephrase the question. So let's say that he comes out with it again and he says it must be in ink, and you can only work from October 5th through October 15th, and those are the only ones I will accept as Inktober participants. Would he not have the right to do that? Now, of course, you can draw. You can draw in ink every day of the year, can't you? But he can classify it as this doesn't qualify in his opinion as Inktober. Wouldn't he have the right to do that? It's his project.
Well, let's take it further. Let's take that idea further. What if he tried to change Inktober?
Now that's a different conversation. That's a different conversation.
No, it's not. Though,
change the goalposts when you're losing. I like that. I like that. You're losing. You go. Wait a minute. Let's make a brand new challenge. This one I can win.
No, because here's the. I knew we were going to get into it. It's impossible not to with you. But here's the thing. You said, does he have the right to, what did you say, to comment on it, to steer it or to? Yeah. Well, that's steering it.
Well, what I mean by that, let me clarify. What I mean by that, what if he says, steer it? What if he comes out in the 10th year? I mean at the creation of it. And if someone says, what are the definitions of it? We should turn to him and say, well, go, hey, Jake, what do you think about this? What do you think about this project? How can we do it? What are the rules? If he says, I only want to ink, I think he has the right to do that. Now, we don't have to follow him. But if he says to be an official Inktober project, it must be an ink. Are you saying you don't think he has the right to do that?
I think he does, but I think that it doesn't matter, is what I'm saying. Because that's what I'm saying. I think it doesn't matter in the long run.
Chalk another one up for the bad guy.
No.
Yeah.
No, because what I'm saying, and the reason I'm going to double down on that is to say, like, what if he says on the 10th year anniversary next year, and he says, so from now on, I've decided as the king of Inktober. By the way, he's not ever going to do this. I'd hate for someone to pop in right now.
He should do it.
As the grand poobah of Inktober, I now declare that it has to be a character. Every ink has to be a character, one single character, and that's it. If it's something other than that, it doesn't qualify. He would be whatever, and they're going to do their thing.
I agree with you.
Okay.
But here's what I'm saying. I think he has the right to say that. Right. I'm saying as the creator of it, as his project. Now, what the community does with that is what the community does. I didn't even say the community had to follow him. But if he's the father and he's saying, this is what I want to happen, this is my baby, this is what I want, this is what I meant. I wanted characters, not landscapes, not seahorses or whatever. Right. He has the right to say that. I'm not saying that everybody has to do it, but he has the right to say, this is what the competition is.
Right.
And this is what I'm expecting. Just like any other competition or whatever you want to call it would go. If there are rules, if he makes rules and he says, I prefer that you guys follow these rules in order to be considered on the Inktober page, we wouldn't say he didn't have the right to do that. We say, okay, that's fine. But I'm going to ink seahorses anyway.
Right.
Okay, well, ink seahorses, but he still has the right.
So I'm glad you agree with me. Okay.
No, you agree with me. That's why you're saying right after I'm making my statement. I'm going to, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to award myself 2 points because I beat you twice in the same argument. Fair enough. We both agree on that.
You have the right to do that.
That's right.
Okay. So I think we've probably covered this pretty good. I want to unless you have anything else. Do you have anything else you want to add in here?
I think we owe the people another podcast very soon.
Yes.
Let's do it an electric.
You know what?
Exciting.
We're always looking for topics. And
Yes,
so if anybody has a topic that would be good for me and Ty to hash out, where I'm more right than he is, we'd love to.
Good luck with that. Comments. Good luck with that.
I want to end. I want to end this with a quote, it says, "If you argue in favor of your limitations, you'll be left with your limitations."
Ooh,
and I think that's true.
Super deep. I like that. I agree.
And I think that's a lot of what has happened, unfortunately, with some of these tweets. And I think those people need to do a little bit of soul searching, and and ask yourself, like, was it? I mean, in the spirit of what he was trying to do, in the spirit of who he is, was that warranted? And you know what? If you did some of the piling on, maybe it's a learning lesson, because it was a shame. But
or you can double down and come and fight Will Terry. Will give you a fight. He'll post all day.
No,
he won't stop. Hey, Will, come get him. Come get him.
No, that doesn't sound like me at all.
Really? Yeah.
Okay, you guys. Thanks for joining us. There was a lot of really good comments in this. I wish we could have got to more of them. And join us on our channels. Tyrus I've got a link to his channel. I've got links to mine. I've got links to SBS. Everything is down in the description. On YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, I think you put links on there, didn't you, Tyrus?
On
Facebook. Stop reading the comments.
Listen, they said some good stuff on YouTube. So Hannah says, hold on. The hashtag is different than a dedicated competition. If he's giving out prizes or something, you're right. So I said if it was a competition, right? That's if.
Oh, she's helping me out right there.
No, she's calling me out. And then
no, she's helping me. She's
right. Yeah, that's no good, because I said if it was a competition, he would have the right to make whatever rules he wanted. So that was a hypothetical.
Stephanie says she's doing it digitally. Go for it, Stephanie. I think it's
Stephanie,
great.
Stop breaking rules. Get an ink pen and some paper and do what you're supposed to do. Max, I am right. Max says Ty is right. Yes, sir. Max, I'm going to send you some books. Let me know I am me. I got you, bro.
You know, one thing.
One's been saying she's going to bed for 20 minutes. She's still here. Jim O'Reilly, you're a good friend, great artist. Thanks for joining us. Go ahead, Will.
One thing I had in my notes that I forgot to add in here, one last little thing to talk about real quick is, let's say you're inking digitally and you're really good at making it look like ink. How many people have already been doing that and getting away with it? So it doesn't matter.
Will, yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm just joking around. You're right. That was my goal. So I was going through different programs to say who has the best inking program. So there was a couple programs that I really liked outside of Photoshop. So it was good. It inspired me to explore new programs and say, man, this is really good. This looks like ink. And some of the things I would post, no one knew digital. Right. So yeah, you're right. I mean, you're right. We agree on that wholeheartedly.
So live and let live, and do your own thing, and be who you are, and don't worry about what other people say or think, or
come fight Will Terry,
or go fight Tyrus.
No, don't come fight me.
Or pound sand. Okay, sounds good. We'll talk to everybody later.
Thanks for checking in, guys. Have a good night.
Good night.